little bit of water can be the difference between looking like this or looking like this. Now you really want to get involved before things go that far, and so it's important to be able to recognize signs of dehydration in your animals. These cichlids here are not dehydrated. They're fish. This typically isn't an issue so long as they're in their aquarium. This is Medusa. She was our two-headed corn snake back in the day. She's been mummified after her passing, and therefore she is showing signs of dehydration. Some of them are obvious, like everything about her. Some of them are more subtle. Let's go take a look. Bearded dragons are an animal that can commonly experience dehydration, and that frequently is going to be the result of having no greens for them to eat. This is where they're going to get a lot of their water content, also through their bugs. Depending on where you live, you can or cannot keep a water dish with your bearded dragon. For example, here in the Fraser Valley, it is super humid. So if we kept a water dish in here, it would spike up her humidity just enough that it could cause her some respiratory and or scale issues. So we give her lots of greens, and then once a day or so she gets a really shallow little bath, and that helps her drink and clean up and hydrate herself. She'll need one today. She's got some squash on her snout here, and she thinks I'm feeding her with this camera. That's why she's got this look. She assumes something here is edible. But we'll look at a couple of signs. You see how her eyes are nice and filled out here? This is a well-hydrated animal. A bearded dragon who's dehydrated, those eyes are going to be sort of sunken back. Now also, the pinch test is a good way to test for dehydration on some animals. So you see how I pinched it and it's just kind of fallen back in place. It takes a second on bearded dragons. That's just kind of how their scales go. But if you pinch it and it's just staying in place like you've molded clay, that can be another good indicator that your animal's dehydrated. Amphibians are also super prone to dehydration. These guys have granular skin. They don't really drink through their mouth. They take in moisture through the skin itself. So if your substrate is too dry, you see how if I grab a handful of this, it clumps a little bit and barely drips any water. That's a good indicator that this frog can stay well hydrated. Whereas if that substrate was dry, it would suck all the moisture right out of this little one. Isn't that right, Brutus? And crested geckos like my buddy McJr. here are another animal that are susceptible to being dehydrated. A lot of these guys can't figure out drinking out of water bowls, so we mist down their enclosures so they get those water droplets they'll drink from. Now, if you forget to do that for a day or two, these guys are going to dehydrate really quickly, and that can be very dangerous for them. Their signs are similar to bearded dragons. The skin will not go back in place. His snaps back pretty much immediately, but if it molds, you have a problem. And the eyes will be sunken in. Now on Mick Jr. here, one of his eyes is kind of sunken in, but that's got nothing to do with dehydration and everything to do with his heterochromia. Dehydration in snakes can be super dangerous. The sunken in eyes is something that will happen, but you won't notice it quite as quickly as you will the pinch test on the skin there. But a snake that is dehydrated, this goes for all living things, but it seems with snakes especially, that's really, really hard on their kidneys and can throw them into failure pretty quick. So you want to make sure you're frequently checking on that water dish, because especially if you are frequently going periods where that water dish is dried up, that is going to affect the lifespan of your snake. Some animals can be kind of frustrating to keep hydrated, like false chameleons, for example. They drink a lot of water, but they won't drink standing water. They need to be misted. That water needs to be flowing. And for the first 30 or 40 seconds of misting them, they won't clue in that it's time to drink. So you go through a lot of water keeping these guys hydrated, but it's essential for their health. Now, the most drastic symptom you might notice in a dehydrated animal is typically going to be lethargy. An animal that is dehydrated is an animal that's not going to have a lot of energy. You probably know how this feels on a hot summer day when you haven't had something to drink for a while. You start to feel really worn down. Now, dehydration is something you want to keep track of. It might not seem like the biggest deal at first, but we're talking renal failure. We're also talking impaction. Dehydration can be a leading cause in severe impactions in some animals, like Argentine tegus. That can have a huge effect on their longevity. It can become an immediate issue that needs to be dealt with immediately, or the animal will not make it. Or if it's something that happens frequently, it's going to build up over time and have a big effect on the internals of said animal. Now let's move outside of animals with dehydration for a quick second. I live almost exclusively off of coffee. Is it healthy? No. Does coffee dehydrate you? Actually, no. That is a common misnomer. Coffee is a diuretic, so there is that, but it's 99% water content. The coffee itself isn't going to dehydrate you. But still, drink water, guys. Drink your daily intake of water. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a vet. I'm just a dude who cleans up reptile poop. Hydrate yourself, hydrate your animals, and have a great week.